So that wasn't exactly the round table. I haven't created an intro for the show yet because this is episode 3 of Let's Rank Stuff. And now I do feel like we've earned the right to have an intro, but I haven't had the opportunity to show off that clip yet in a real show because I made it right before the holiday season and everything. So with that said, Austin, we're going to talk about Saw. Without giving away any specifics, do you feel like you have any hot takes, or do you feel like your list is fairly standard?
I have a hot take, Henry. Oh yes, there will be blood. No, I don't know if I'll have a whole lot of like really hot. I don't know. I might have a pretty hot take. You know what? My number one might be a hot take. My number one might be a pretty hot take. You know what? And my number 9 might be a hot take. I don't know. Some of the middle ones I think is whatever. But yeah, he's gonna log off right now. So yeah.
Oh geez, I'm definitely excited.
Oh geez. Honestly, my 1 and 2, like ranking wise, you know what? I might not even decide until we get there. It's like so on the border. I might just have to make a split decision right before I go to it. It's like one of those. Honestly, like it's right. I might just have to make a decision right before we go to it. So we'll see.
And I don't hate that concept. So I mean, yeah, we'll see how it goes. This is the first live show, so essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to go back and forth with our numbers, and if they're like fairly close, then we'll just talk about it then, and we'll reveal. If not, we'll save it. So just kind of free form. Kind of you guys know how I do things. So I'll go ahead and get started, and I'm hoping that this the same number what is it, 9, right? I just logged out, so number 9. So my number 9, and we'll see if it's the same as you, but my number 9 is going to be Saw 7, the final chapter.
I'm close. I have it at number 8, so we're very, very close.
Okay, so we can definitely talk about it. So
yeah, we can definitely talk about it because it would be my second pick as far as kind of near the bottom. So yeah. So Saw the final chapter. Is that what we're talking? Saw 3D, whatever you want to call it. Saw 7.
There's a lot of unnecessary names for it. And speaking of unnecessary, I will admit it closes out decently, but other than that, that's really all the movie does. So my biggest gripe with this movie is the fact that the opening kill / trap has nothing to do with the entire movie, let alone the entire franchise. It's literally there just to be unnecessary gore and trap and shock and all that stuff. It doesn't add anything. Regardless of what you think of the traps throughout the franchise, they play an integral part, or at least a semi-integral part throughout, whether it's that movie or the franchise as a whole. This is literally
and the people in the traps, whether even if they die in the opening scene, have something to do with pushing the plot forward later, or it comes back where they had some kind of connection to what's going on in the plot of the film, something like that. Hey Chris, that's our other co-host on the Movie Hero Network. Thanks for joining us. He's a big Saw fan too, so I'm sure he'll enjoy this. But yeah, we're talking about Henry's number 9, which is Saw the final chapter. Yeah, it's one of those things where I will say this. I did read somewhere that the only connection I could find with this opening kill that has to the rest of the movie is that when Dr. Gordon has like 2 goons with him that take down Hoffman at the end of the movie, it's those 2 guys, is what Darren Lynn Bousman said on the commentary. Brad and Ryan. But why? I don't know. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. You know what I mean? Like it could be any 2 goons. Like he could have hired off the street. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you're right. It's out of place. It's in a public forum, which he's never done in any of the movies. They're always kind of secluded or private, for, in some warehouse or some apartment, whatever, somewhere just where it's a confidential thing, between the parties. It doesn't push the plot forward at all. It's like you said, it's random, it's isolated. Saw the final chapter has a lot of good ideas, none of which really come to fruition. I like the idea of a survivors group. I like the idea, but they do nothing with it. I like the idea of a guy who kind of lied his way into fame, with the thing. But again, they don't really do much with it. It's just they introduce the idea, and then it's like a rehash of other movies we've seen done better, where a guy is, doing his own sort of test by doing tests with other people. We've seen that done in other movies better. Just a lot of concepts that are done better. The movie feels kind of rushed and just cheap. I wish they had taken their time with it. If it was truly going to be a final one, they should have taken their time with it. That's the one thing I don't think about it.
Trap, I guess that's interesting and memorable from this is the one in the junkyard with Lester Bennington, R.I.P.
Right.
His little cameo. It's interesting how they're glued to the seat and all that stuff. And when you rip them up, everything go flying and it does a couple angles. You know what I mean? So it's got kind of an homage to Death Proof. Shout out our second episode.
Sure.
Death Proof and Tarantino. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit interesting. So I mean, for me, and that's another thing I want to start implementing the show. So like for me, this is 2 out of 5 stars, because it's the spoiler alert. It's the only not fresh movie of the franchise for me. So this is one of those where it's just, I don't know. I don't hate it because there's something.
Well, it's I rewatched it and it's like, it's not boring. I mean, it moves fast. It's like an 85-minute movie and there's like 10 traps in the movie or something. There's a trap every like 5 minutes in this movie. I mean, it's nuts. Like once they get into it, like it moves. I mean, so it's not boring. You know what I'm saying? There's always something going on, but like the police stuff in this is ridiculous. Hoffman, it just kind of gets comical with him just taking out everybody in his path with ease. You know what I mean? He's a literal Terminator in this movie, just taking out people left and right, which, don't get me wrong, is kind of fun to a point, but like, it's kind of done better in a previous movie, and it just gets to the point of being kind of silly. And then the fact that they
fun is because of the Hoffman character established in previous movies. So
yes, right.
The weight of it is not from this movie. It's just kind of like when you're watching a TV show or a franchise where you're willing to give credit or give things whatever forgiveness because of what's it built before. That's kind of this where you're like, all right, I buy it, but like not because anything this movie's saying, but what we've seen in other movies. You're like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing where everybody's been waiting for Dr. Gordon to come back, and the fact that he comes back and they do nothing with it. They don't explain his motivations. They don't go into his character as to why he had this change of heart about or even a scene with him and Tobin Bell just like sitting down and like talking, like why couldn't we get a scene of them just like discussing philosophy? Right. You think there would be something, have an extended scene. They're 2 good actors, Tobin Bell and Carrie Elways. Have them I'd watch 5 minutes of them just going back and forth about their, why'd you do this to me? Why did this with this? You took away the family in danger. Da, 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 da. You could see like that scene happening, right? I mean, like it would make sense to do that, even if it is a reshoot kind of thing. You could dress them up as went back in 2004 or whatever, and they don't do any of that. He just shows up for the one scene, and then he shows up at the end, and that's it. Like they do nothing with it, so it's just a letdown. It's just disappointing.
So instead of the movie of him like going against the pipe and kind of cauterize his arm to kind of like, his leg to saw it off and like cauterize the wound or however they phrase it. Instead of doing that, have him actually go home and like go back to his wife and his daughter and like the relationship being all messed up. And he's like, I did all that for you. And they're like, we're not in that place. We don't love you anymore, type of deal. And that's what turns him evil. It can still feel cheap and stuff, but at least it gives them, like you said, a little bit of motivation and understanding. So then Tobin Bell,
you could have done so much with that dynamic, and it's just wasted. It's just thrown away in the garbage, and like it's like, oh, there he is, and he's gone. I mean, we've been waiting 6 movies for him to come back. Everybody's been, oh, he's the guy. I mean, even back in Saw 2, there were people going like, oh, he's the one who put the key behind it. I remember seeing that on IMDb message boards back in the day, and it's like confirmed in this movie. And then it's like, yeah, because I used to read IMDb message boards all the time for like these Saw movies, and people were like, oh, he's the guy in the hood with the thing, and he was like, and I feel like people were looking at those message boards being like, oh, that's a good idea, we could make him that guy. So like people were taking it for the fans, but there's so much you could have done with that dynamic, and I understand that he only came back for the one movie, but if he's going to be back for that movie, let's make him a big part of the movie. Let's make it a central focus. It's just tossed away. There's, again, a lot of good ideas, some good, interesting things here and there, but everything just kind of falls flat, and it's just a not very well thought out movie. So yeah, that's my number 8.
So like you said, that's your number 8. So let's go on to your number 9.
Well, my number 9 in last place, and I rewatched it just to confirm, is from a few years ago. It's Jigsaw. Jigsaw to me is, to me, boy, did I watch this movie, and man, it's just to me the most flat, boring movie of all the films. Like it just does nothing for me. Like the story does nothing. Yeah, thanks. But hey, listen, I'm not the only one who thinks that. The movie looks weird. Like it's just shot differently, which I appreciate a little bit when they're trying to reboot it. But then we're gonna shoot it differently, and then we're gonna do this dumb timeline thing where it takes place like 10 years ago, but it doesn't take place 10 years ago. Introduce another accomplice, which is like we already have like what 4, 5, 6. How many more accomplices do we need to retcon and go back and add back in the past? I don't appreciate that. It's stupid. We don't need it. We've had enough of that. And again, nothing about the police stuff in this movie gets me whatsoever. I don't care about a single character in this movie or a single character motivation. Even the traps themselves are fairly bland, other than and I got really excited when I saw the trailers. I was like, ooh, lasers, they're using lasers now, sweet. But like it doesn't really go anywhere or pay off that much. Tobin Bell, I had forgotten he was even in this movie, which is how much I forgot about this movie going back to it. Almost nothing about this movie works for me, other than some of the visual stuff. That's literally about it. I remember forgetting about this movie about a week after I left the theater, and going back to it recently did not do anything to help. So yeah, my number 9 is Jigsaw.
I'll save my thoughts for later. So
Sure.
I'll let you continue and do your number 8. Or no, that was Saw 7.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I did do it. Yeah, number 8 is one. So what's your number 8?
My number 8 is going to be one based on some ideas of what we talked behind the scenes of. I think you're going to disagree, but that is Saw 6.
Okay.
And the reason that Saw 6 is my number 8, similar to Saw 7, it's one of those where I just feel like at that point it's getting convoluted, and you're doing enough to make me interested in the franchise because I love the franchise, but you're not doing enough to like say anything really new and different. I feel like there's a little bit there. Don't get me wrong. Like it's fine. Like I don't hate myself for watching any of these movies. You know what I mean? This is one of my favorite franchises. Like I'm invested like in the concept of Saw, but it's just, I don't know. There's just something about like, having Jill as like one of the main characters and the Hoffman stuff at that point. He's getting, he's just so manic and crazy, and like you don't really like him. Whereas like everything with John Kramer, you like, obviously he's wrong. Don't get me wrong, but you at least understand his reasoning for everything he's doing. Whereas Hoffman, he's just technically pure evil. And it's one of those where it's like, I don't know. And like, he's a good actor for Hoffman. Like he does a good job portraying the pure evil of Hoffman. But like on the contrary of like Anton Chigurh, Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, sure, he's the, pure evil, but he has like quirks that like make him like fun and memorable. Whereas in this one, Hoffman just doesn't really have anything. Like I'm not saying he needs to be funny or quippy or nothing, like, but there's just nothing about like his character that like makes you want him to be like the lead guy. So like, since in a sense that's what he is in this movie, it's one of those where it's like it just falls the most flat for me. And I feel like other than the outlandishness of the opening of 7 and just generally how unnecessary 7 is, 6 could have been right below it. Like they've gone back and forth. So I feel like you're gonna not talk about this yet, I'm assuming.
I'm not going to talk about this one for a while.
Then I will let you talk about your 7.
Which might be a hot take, but we'll see where it ends up. But boy, I might not talk about this one for a minute.
My dog is not barking, so go ahead and talk about your 7.
Yeah. Okay, my number 7 is going to be the one I just finished rewatching right before we went live from this year. That's going to be Spiral. Spiral, to me, it's supposed to be the spin-off Saw movie, so I know it's not supposed to feel like a traditional Saw film, but for me, that's one of its detriments, despite it being directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who did Saw 2, 3, and 4, which are some of the high points of the series, in my opinion. He comes back to direct this, which is one of the reasons I was excited for it. And you mix in Chris Rock and Sam Jackson, and then being kind of producers and writers of it too. I was excited for this one, and I actually really like the police procedural stuff in the movie. Like, I actually think Chris Rock is really good. I think he gives him one of the better performances of the franchise, honestly. I think the storyline itself is at least interesting with, you know, the dealing with corrupt cops and kind of you know, just corruption in general, and you know, this new guy Max kind of you know, messing with the system and wanting to punish people like that. I just don't find. I don't think the pacing is very good in the movie. I don't think the traps are particularly creative or really well done. I mean, the opening stuff with the subway is cool and kind of brutal, but then after that, I feel like there's a real lull in the movie for a long time. I don't think the finger trap does anything for me. The wax stuff doesn't do really anything for me. It gets a little more interesting, I think, in the last few minutes, but again, the climax, we get a little bit. I just don't feel like we learn enough about the guy doing everything. We don't really get a whole lot of good payoffs. There's not really any twists per se. I kind of called his rookie partner being the killer like halfway through the movie, you know, when they didn't show his death and when they just showed like a body but didn't show like a full video. It's just really predictable, and I feel like unpredictability helps with the Saw movies when you don't see things coming or when kind of they throw you for a loop, but in a good way. So Spiral is higher than Jigsaw, higher than Final Chapter because it's better shot, it's better made. You know, it feels like they're putting some effort into it. Again, I just don't really connect with a lot of it outside of the police stuff. I just don't think the Saw aspects are very good as far as a Saw movie. So I'd be open to them doing like a sequel of sorts and expanding on it. But it just needed to feel more like a Saw movie to me to really get higher on my list. So I mean, it's a decent movie in general. I did not enjoy it, but it's just kind of lower. When I think of the Saw franchise, this is one of the lower ones on my list personally.
So I'll talk about Spiral because that's my number 6. So it's not like it's
Okay,
like,
close enough. Yeah.
but it is a 4-star movie for me. I really did enjoy this, and by shout out to Saw 6, that is a 2-star. So this is a 4-star movie for me because I like the concept of what you're doing of like it feels it is a spinoff. You know what I mean? It's one of those where
Mm-hmm.
it's so obviously get into more specific when I talk about Jigsaw about how Jigsaw is related and how it's inspired for that film and like the narrative. But in this one, it's literally meant to be kind of like a gimmick on purpose to like detract from the true heart of what's going on. And I've watched this. You said you just seen it just the one time after the theaters. I've seen this 3 times now. So I think the one extra time where I was eagle-eyeing, there's a couple hints, you know, where obviously in flashbacks they say it where like Max, like, you know, your father's the reason for all this. And there's other things about how he talks about the son and blah blah blah. And
well, and the reason he's the reason why I'm here, and he points at the thing at his dad. Like I picked up all that stuff this time. You know what I mean? Now that I knew it, like I was looking for that stuff on this most recent. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up, but like yeah, there's definitely dropped lines like there always is. You know what I mean?
It's one of those things where I feel like the dynamic of what we're doing of it, and here's the one main criticism I've heard like consistently is like it's just a lot of yelling. But like when you think about like if you if you like a lot of crime movies and cop movies, the concept of like snitching and ratting on your fellow officer, that's like a betrayal. So obviously Chris Rock did it. So you're building him up as like a good cop and like a good person. So you want him to be the good guy, but he still has that edge and that attitude. So like you at any point when there's any doubt, you have that little bit of like, I don't know, is he the guy? Like I believe him because he does everything about the book, but also he's kind of an asshole. So like, is he? You know what I mean? So that's how I feel like that's how you do one of those things where it's like the narrative is like, hey, he might be, where it's not like ham-fisted, you know what I mean? And I feel like that the way that they wrote his character having a little edge, and I think that's Chris Rock. He's like, this is how I want to be this character, and like, oh, this is how we can draw the line. So I'm not the bad guy, but also the story makes me think I might be in a couple scenes. You know what I mean? And I feel like the reason, and this is also I'm going to differ this when I talk about Jigsaw later, but the reason that a lot of the stuff in this film doesn't feel as interesting is the fact that it is a Jigsaw rip or a Saw series spinoff / ripoff, but it's also inspired by within the actual story, not just in the movie. So like the character who's doing all the stuff behind the scenes, they're not meant to be this elaborate Jigsaw person. So they do enough inspired by Jigsaw traps to like obviously have that idea of this is what we're doing and this is what we're inspired by. I mean, obviously they're not even pretend to be Jigsaw. They're they're their own character. So it's one of those where it's like sure, it's not as interesting, but I think that kind of plays into the character and into the story because it's like, oh, this is different motivation, different motives. And then once you realize, you see it's definitely like going after cops, well, in specific dirty cops, that it makes it more interesting and like intriguing where it's like, how are we going to wrap this up? So like you said, by the end, it gets that point that, man, this kind of works. And Max, he's smart. So my one, not, it's not a knock per se, but the way that it ends, it's one of those scenarios where if the second one comes out, which it made some money, but not who knows. I'm not saying it's not a guarantee.
Well, it's still up in the air whether or not they've already signed a 10th film. It's still up in the air whether it's going to be Spiral 2 or Saw 10. Exactly. We don't know. So it's still up in the air. So right now they don't know which direction they're going to go.
I was fine with it, but this one of those movies that could go up if the payoff later on, really makes it like elevated. I mean, it's one of those situations like for some people where it's like, oh, The Force Awakens went down because Last Jedi ruined everything that it built up in Skywalker and so on. So I think this would be the inverse where it's like, oh no, this built it up and like, boom, this is going to pay off. Or it could be like that where it goes down. I'm like, oh damn, that didn't go nowhere with that. So it kind of just, was just empty calories. So it's one of those things where I really like the movie and I really don't feel like it's long. I mean, obviously it's not actually long, but I feel like it's well paced because it's got some music in there. It's fun. Everyone's got some energy, whether it's yelling energy or whatever, but they got charisma and stuff. Sam Jackson's not in it enough, but like you can't make that a criticism of the movie. If you take any other actor and put him in that character.
No, I figured he was going to be a side character. I didn't expect him to be in the whole movie. Like I expected he would be, and he's got a couple of flashbacks too, which add to the runtime. But no, I mean, I think Chris Rock does a good job carrying the movie. Like I'm invested in him. You know what I mean? Like so he carries me. Like even through the lull stuff, like I'm invested in him. I just don't really buy the whole like when dude's trying to be like, oh, yeah, we can be partners at the end, and you feed me the dirty cops, and I'll do the dirty work. Like he's not going to do that. Like he wants to see corrupt cops like. He doesn't want to see dirty cops, but I don't think he wants to like kill cops. Like it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like I don't think the dude thought it through where he's just like, oh, we can be partners. You feed them to me. Like it doesn't work for me.
It's a combination of, like I said, it depends on how they're going to pay it off in the next one, but also it's one of those things where it's like this series does this a lot too. And I feel like this is actually, credit to this movie where it builds off the fact that you're kind of pushing characters into a corner. I mean, even with like, you're making them injure themselves to stay alive and you're making them, kind of, we'll talk about that later in Saw 4 in specifics, but you're making characters do Jigsaw level stuff, even though they don't want to kind of either A, test their will, or B, recruit them. And I feel like that's what Max's thought process is. He's like, no matter what, I'm either going to get under your skin and I'm still going to technically use you until I can't anymore because you're not going to go for it, or I'll flip you and I'll fully benefit from everything, you being on my side. So I feel like it's the flip on both sides where it's like, I feel like it does work, but it also depends on the writing of the next one, if we do get a next one. So I'm fairly positive that it's going to work because every movie within this franchise, they figured out a way to either tie it together retrospectively or they big picture for movies. And we're starting to get into the point where we're really going to start talking about those. Or like,
oh no, I do appreciate about the series that it has this, we've talked about this nutty continuity as far as like wanting to pay off every little thing you see, every character connection, every envelope that gets put in a drawer, whatever it is, like they pay off everything, especially if you watch, like if you do a marathon, over a couple of days or whatever, and you watch like 1, 2, you just go in order and watch them, like they pay off everything. They don't leave really any loose ends. And if you can get sucked up into this, you get sucked up into this continuity, and it's kind of fun in that way. For people who just think they're just bloody dumb movies, putting people in traps, like they've really set up this world where it's like, it's crazy like that. And that's one thing I've appreciated about, again, as we get into some of these earlier films that we haven't talked about yet, like how they connect everything and set up everything, and all the world that they create is really something. It's something.
When I think about this franchise, I think about that Charlie Day meme where it's like he's got all the
he's connecting the whole dots and everything.
Writer's room with this, where there's like, let's make it. How do we get that? That's a lot of fun. So we're gonna go over to my number 7 because reminder, Spiral was my 6 and that was your 7. My number 7 is going to be Saw 5, and this is the point.
Okay, well, it's my number 6, so we just have a flip flop right there, so we can talk about it. It's perfect. So yeah,
well, yeah, Spiral was my 6, so yeah, that was actually a beautiful.
so perfect.
So
All right.
Saw 5 is this, well, and Spiral technically, because I'm skipping it because I already talked about it. But this is where we talk about, like, these are good movies. Like, these are the ones where it's like I don't really have any issues with them. They're just not my favorites of the franchise. You know what I mean? Like, the dynamic between Hoffman and Strahm in this movie is crazy. Like, it's probably the funnest rivalry that we have in the entire movie, in the entire series, because when you think of 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are more quote unquote big picture things, because John Kramer has, he's so smart that he has ways to, like, have issues or beef or certain situations with some of the main characters. The main characters, obviously, he has his real strong beef with smaller characters that are not integral to, like, the movies. They're integral to the plot, but not the movies. But in this one, Strahm and Hoffman are at the forefront. So when you get to that final thing of the glass box, that is one of the. I've never been more satisfied to watch, and it's ironic that I say this after what I was just talking about with Saw 6. I've never been more satisfied to watch, like, the villain win, because of just how smart and, like, based on at this point how the franchise has been built up, where it's like, just listen, follow the rules, and you will make it. And Strahm's actually a smart character. He's one of the characters, like, where he pretty much does every. I mean, obviously starts off, with in the neck. You know what I mean? He does what he needs to do.
The tracheotomy is one of the smartest decisions in a horror movie ever, and it's one of the crazy horror movie history. It's one of the smartest, coolest, most inventive, save yourself, things that's ever been done in a movie. And it's one of the things that makes this one stand apart, even though it's one of the lesser films. Like, that opening with that is genius, and the fact that he survives and the look on Hoffman's face when they bring him out on the gurnie is like, oh crap, like, he did it. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Like, this guy's still around. I thought I had him. I was going to make it look like a trap.
I build my trap so you can't survive. How did he survive?
Yeah, right. How did he survive? And he survives. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, the cat and mouse game that they play and this whole thing. And it's funny, even when you go back and watch the earlier ones, when he first comes in and the fourth one, I believe, like, he doesn't really trust him from the beginning. Like, they don't trust each other at all from the beginning. So there's going to be some, something that's going to build there. But yeah, they're both, like, fairly smart characters. Like, Strahm's not a dummy. He figures things out pretty quick, even though he makes rash decisions, quick decisions that get him killed later. Obviously, he's kind of he's got that hot-headed side, much like some of the other characters. He's not stupid, as we see from the tracheotomy. It immediately makes him go, oh, this guy's inventive and smart. Like, he knows his way out of a situation. Even when he's about to get squashed, he's trying to figure it out. You think he might climb out of that thing, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, is he going to get out of this too? Like, he could.
That's also good. That's also good writing for this character, because you're kind of rooting for him. You're like, come on, get out of there.
You're like, get out of there. Okay, yeah, you're climbing up. Okay, get out. Maybe he'll, like, break something or whatever. Get out of there, or something he didn't think of. Is he going to get out of there again, and it's game over? No, and Henry, it might be the first time we've ever actually seen somebody actually get squashed by a squishing room in history, because everybody seems to get out of it eventually, but this is the only one that actually pays off. So, like, it might be the first one of those. Oddly enough, I think the least interesting stuff in Saw 5 is the main trap portion of the movie, which is why this one doesn't rank higher. The 5 people kind of going from room to room to room, it's just kind of the least interesting stuff. Like, it's one of the movies where it's flip-flop, or a lot of the times fans are like, oh, I love the trap scenes, but the police stuff or whatever's going on is like, man, I'm just waiting to get to the next trap. And in this movie, it's kind of flipped. Like, I'm with the Hoffman Strahm stuff, and then when he goes back to the trap stuff, I'm kind of like, man, it's okay, but I'm kind of waiting to get back to Hoffman and Strahm. It's kind of flipped in this one.
With Hoffman as a whole, because, like, him, when he's on screen doing his crazy stuff, you're engaged with it because it's technically well written and stuff. But, like, him as the new Jigsaw, it just doesn't. That's why it doesn't hold any weight for me, because, like, he doesn't have any like real incentive. Like, the opening scene with was it no, not Cecil's the other character. Spence, no, whoever killed his sister. I just forgot.
Oh, the Seth guy or whatever, the Seth dude with the tattoos. Yeah.
Seth. Like, obviously that's actually one where you get the motivation, everything, how he builds it up, and blah blah blah. And it's one of those things where you like, okay, there's something here. Like if we just dug more deep into his like psyche and like why he's doing like that's why I love everything about John Kramer, because there's so many, people can talk smack as much as they want about the concept of flashbacks and the reliance on flashbacks, but it's it's smart storytelling for this series, but they just lack that with Hoffman, and that kind of just bums me out, because I feel like there's more that you can explore to that character. You could have had him really go deeper into when he gets Jeff's daughter, when he says something. There's more on the table that like brings some humanity to him. He's just more of a face. I mean, he's got a face obviously, but he's just like a robot. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't hate the character. We've talked about this privately as well. I don't hate the character, and I definitely don't hate the performance. It's just something that I just don't connect with it. So once he becomes the main focus, it just brings it down a notch for me. And because Saw 5 and the dynamic between him and Strom, it keeps it above the others, because technically, like you said, the main storyline, the plot line with the actual trap and the 5 characters, there's some fun stuff in there. You know what I mean? How they don't trust each other.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few fun dynamics, but I just think it's
work together. That's one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, dude, that sucks. Because if you'd have figured that
Yeah,
out,
it sucks.
it would have been good. You know what I mean? So it's
well, and to me, I physically got kind of ill with the final thing with the saws and them running their arms up through it. Like I got kind of physically ill when I saw it in the theater. I was like, okay, I can handle most of this stuff, but like this is making me queasy. Like it's because it lingers on it like a really long. And I have a thing about like saws in between like your fingers and stuff, like the webbings. Like I'm just like, like that just gets
one
like
of the most realistic
reason.
and like the most practical situation you can find yourself in amongst like almost all the traps. You can see that happening in real life on accident.
Oh,
so like
yeah.
triggers that memory of like, ugh.
Yeah, right. Well, my dad working down in the shop and like, accidentally getting your fingers caught in some, one of those table saws or something. Yeah, you're just like, yeah. So like that's the only thing that gets me. But that's the only one where I really have like a reaction to it. And yeah, the twist, if you even want to call it a twist of like, oh, well, if you guys had worked together, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. Like, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Like it's not that great. It's just
that's honestly how a lot of these stories are. If you work together, it's like, I mean, I bring that back a little bit. A lot of the stories where it's like it's definitely a Highlander situation. There can only be one, but there's also some traps where like if you work together, so it's a nice back and forth. But I don't know, and also you don't really care about any of those people. Like there's not really anything to keep you together. But like I said, the Strom and the Hoffman storyline is so strong that
I like Hoffman. I like Hoffman over. I like his aura he gives off. I like that he puts off this hardline detective thing, but he's got this psychotic, other side to him, kind of alter ego that comes out. He gets that look in his eyes. Like I dig him. I'll talk about maybe
7.
He's a Terminator, dude. Like he's a bad motherfucker in these movies, man. Like I'll talk about that more later, but like he's a bad mofo in these movies, man. Like I'd like to see him, go up against some other characters in some of these franchises, man. I dig him, but I'll talk about more of that later. But
villain, villain stuff. That would
just like dudes who could just survive situations. Like I think Hoffman's up there. Hoffman could figure his way out of some situations too. So
he's not as interesting, but I will admit he is smart. So
he's a smart dude, and I just appreciate smart horror characters. You know what I mean? We don't get to see a lot of smart horror characters, and
honestly, we can agree that's why we love this franchise. There's smart characters to go around. You know what I mean?
There's you've got dumb characters, you've got spacey characters, you got characters that make hot decisions that get them in trouble, but you've also got smart characters that think things through and and benefit from that. So yeah, it has a little bit of everything. No, I like that a lot. So.
All right, so that was a reminder. That was my 7, and that was your 6.
That was my 6. Yes.
We're gonna jump over to both of our 5s now because all of our 6s have been covered. I'm gonna let you go first since this was
okay. My number 5, and I juggled with my 4 and 5, but I settled on my number 5 is going to be Saw 3. So I kind of settled on that right in the middle, kind of, because again, there's things I really like about it, but there's also one glaring thing, and that's the movie is like 2 hours long, and it feels 2 hours long, and all these other movies are like a tight 85, 90 minutes, and this movie feels that length in a lot of the scenes. Don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the stuff, again, jumping back into his philosophy, him spitting, his stuff from the deathbed, and I like the dynamic of, keeping him alive, and a lot of stuff with Lynn and her dynamic with Amanda, Shawnee Smith kind of going back and forth and going,
start to build.
Yeah, this little rivalry that kind of builds and builds and builds, and then you find out later there's another motive behind everything, but of course there is because it's a Saw movie. but at the time when you're watching the movie, I liked at the time when I first saw the movie that it was we were following a guy kind of going from person to person, and it was kind of a dual test thing, which we hadn't seen at the time, and again we've seen a couple of times since then. But to me it's just like, I wish Jeff would just pick up the pace a little bit. It seems like he kind of mopes around from thing to thing, and it's like, all right, dude, I think this movie could move a little faster if you like moved a little faster and moved your ass from like one trap to another. He's he's poking around and kind of shuffling along, and it's like, all right, dude, come on. This needs to be like a 95-minute movie. Let's move it. Like we could trim 10 minutes of you just walking around. And also just the fact that this movie, I have a hard time rewatching this because there's like a 10-minute sequence that I just have to skip because it makes me literal queasy. I can't do surgery gore, so the brain surgery stuff I just can't do. I cannot watch it. I cannot watch brain surgery. It just gets to me. Like I can handle people getting limbs chopped off and getting torn apart and twisted up and all this stuff, but like you start cutting into somebody's skull and opening brain matter, and it's just like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. It makes me queasy. And the sound it makes when she's drilling into it, I just can't do it. Oh, I can't do it.
Like, you can imagine yourself in that situation. You're like, it's
scary.
Yeah. Like, oh,
I never want to have brain surgery. Like, just let me go to sleep. I'm just done.
She literally said he has to be conscious for it.
Yeah. Like, oh God, that concept freaks me out of you being conscious while they're like cutting your skull open. Like, no, thank you. I can't do that. But I mean, I think it definitely has some of the most memorable stuff like in the series. Obviously, the rack is like one of the most memorable, sort of traps in any of the movies. Like it is brutal, dude. Like you can just imagine like just holding your arm up and like just twisting it enough to where you can't anymore, and imagine just keep going. Like, oh my God, that's the worst. And having that done 4 or 5 times, like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. I think even the pig stuff where the dude's like drowning in like the pig guts, like is pretty disgusting and memorable.
That's what I thought you were talking about with the queasiness. I thought that one because it's
no. I can handle all that. It's literally just like surgery. I was
inventing a smell though during that scene. I was like,
oh yeah. You're like, yeah, it probably smells like dead bodies and like rotting bugs and like burnt old flesh meat. And like old meat, like disgusting expired like cans of meat, whatever. But it's I dig. Overall, I still dig the movie. I just think it has a few pacing issues and a few just lulls here and there. But I dig Tobin Bell. Like it is giving a good performance, like from the deathbed. He's doing a good job with the, given the fact he can't really move around. He's doing a lot with his face, and he's doing a lot with just his voice tones and everything. Even when he perks up every now and then, Amanda, stop it. He's just, you can feel that he still looms over the movie.
And also that guy. Whatever. There's a lot going on where he just great job.
And the twist in this one is actually great. Like when she shoots Lynn, and like you find out that Lynn is actually Jeff's wife, and then he shoots her, but then like he kills Jigsaw, but then that sets off the thing where she gets killed from the shotgun thing, which is such a simple like thing, but like, oh my God, the payoff of it is like, holy shit. Like she gets like, it's just nothing left. It's like, oh my God.
I don't know what practical effects, how they did that, but it's very
brutal.
It looks disgusting.
Yeah. It's just so all that stuff is good. The last like 10 minutes or so is really, really strong. A lot of these movies, the last 5-10 minutes is like really, really strong because obviously they amp it up. They're wrapping everything up, the fast cutting.
This is a screen where they're like, hey, let's write the endings first and then backtrack the rest.
We'll backtrack, and go backwards and fill in the gaps, here and there. Yeah, we'll start with okay. What's the? It's like a Shyamalan or something. Like, what's the twist going to be of this, and then we'll work backwards. Yeah, no, I know. It feels like that sometimes with some of these entries, but I still dig Saw 3. It's just kind of middle of the road because it's not that it's bad. I just have other movies I watch more and that I dig just the vibe of more. That's all it is. I still like Saw 3. I'll watch it any day. But there's just other ones I would put on before it. That's literally all it is.
That is absolutely fair, and I will save my speech.
Thoughts for that for later. All right.
I will jump over to my number 5, and my number 5. I will set the standard here. from now on, these are all 5-star movies for me, and 5 stars under my criteria are favorite movies. So these are movies that at any time, if I want to flip them out in my top, I could rotate. Like, these are any of the ones that could be my Saw one of my favorites. You know what I mean? So from now on, like, you know, this is technically top 5, but my top 5 favorites, literally, because, you know, this is one of my favorite franchises. So with that said, my number 5 is Saw 2. And the reason I say
you are going to love my later rankings. You are going to stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned, folks.
No. Like I said, remember, at this point, I'm telling you, honestly, whichever one I watched first could, you know, they could bump. Like, this is like my torpedo ranking. Depending on how I watched them, the order could change. But at this point, these 5 are favorites. So with that said, the reason as of, you know, today, why this is my number 5 is it's the only one that I don't have an emotional connection to. I have an audience connection to. I love everything that's going on. I think it's very smart, well acted. You know, it looks good. It's interesting, even though it's self-contained. There's enough going on that feels inventive and fresh, and it spreads out. You know, compared to Saw 1, where it expands a little bit, and then the payoff at the end is you know, it's fun. But in terms of like the emotional connection, I feel like if we would have had a little more from Matthews and his son Daniel, just a little bit. Like, I liked what we got. Like I said, 5-star movie, but, you know, favorite.
Well, movie. No, we just don't get really of the much of the son's backstory as far as his beef with his dad, and like, we don't get a whole lot of that. Yeah, I get it.
Like, it's just you know, when I'm picking at hairs and like ordering these, it's just the lower of them, because when it gets to later on, either the payoff is top-notch payoff, or there's an emotional level to it. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's the lower one, but I have a lot of fun. And then honestly, when you're watching this film, you're genuinely thinking Amanda is like, she got snaked and she just got thrown back in it, because she does a fantastic job of like she's acting within the movie. Like, Amanda, the character, is acting is in this entire house. You know what I mean? She's doing a fantastic job of pulling the strings while still not looking obvious. Like, and I've watched it multiple times. All right, is this a bullshit, you know, sweep under the rug, or is it actually
right
enough going on where she is in there? Like, honestly, even the needle scene is the one where you're like, I don't know, is that Snake? But you're also in needles, and it's the PTSD of, you know, her being a junkie. So obviously she's freaking out a little bit, but she knows at the end of the day it's gonna hurt and everything, but she's gonna be fine.
Well, I don't think she expected to get thrown into it, you know, because that wasn't hers. You know what I mean? So like, it's just something she has to deal with. But you can see that she's like, no, I think the shock on her face is more of just like, oh my God, I'm in a pit of needles now, and I was not expecting this. But yeah, like, she's having to like protect the kid, because the kid needs to make it out of there alive. But like,
if you're actually like Hoffman this, you notice how she prioritizes Daniel's, like, you know, survival and everything a lot in this movie. And
I really like Frankie G in this movie as what's his name? Like he's awesome. Like, he's so great. Like, the fact that he just is like,
Hoffman, if Hoffman was in a trap, like within a room, this is Hoffman. That's Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
So that's
dude.
Okay, and I know it sounds silly, because, you know, but if Hoffman had as much charisma as that character in the movie, because he's obviously evil and a cock, but like, he's kind of fun, and like, you know, you're like, you know, you're like, I hate you, but I kind of like you. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I'm missing for Hoffman. But anyway, yes, he does a great job, and the dynamic in it. And then what's his name? Glenn Plummer. He does a really good job of being, you know, the concept of like the con and having like that father figure, but also the con image and everything. He's smart, but he's also kind of like scummy, but he's also at that point where he's like, I'm too old for this shit. You know what I mean? There's enough going on.
Yeah.
We have the sleazy, I forgot his name, but the guy who kidnaps everyone before he has to go through the incinerator. Like,
right.
You kind of like feel sorry for him right before it happened. You're like, obviously you're not rooting for him, but like, by the time it happens, you feel like you're like, no one wants to see anyone get burned alive. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's enough in this movie that like, you develop like, you don't need full backstories for these characters, but you develop their personalities and like who they are as people, generally speaking. So like, when stuff happens to him, except for the one guy that gets shot in the face at the beginning, you know, he's the one throwaway where you're like, you need to get,
you know, you know, you got to have that body count. It is what it is. You know, you got to put that body count on. I mean, Saw 2 is fun. It feels like a haunted house or a house of horrors, and that's what's fun about it. You know, it's like an escape room house or something. You know, like a modern day, you know, like those escape room movies that have come out recently. You know, it's kind of like that, only with like these deadly traps.
The other day, not great.
Yeah. Well, they're not great, but they have a quality of like, you're still compelled to see what they're going to do next, kind of like some of even some of the
Wars.
lesser Saw movies. You want to see like where they're going to go or see what they come up with. So it's still fun to a degree. It's not great, but it's it's still fun to a degree. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about Saw 2 pretty soon. But yeah,
All right.
but
So
it's a good one.
Number 5.
Oh, I said my number 5 was Saw 3, so we'll move on to my number 4. Yeah, so my number 4 is the original Saw. So the original Saw is number 4. Why?
Hot take. All right.
Hot take. You need like a fire emoji or something for like a hot take, because you need like a triple fire emoji for my number 1. But yeah, so yeah, no, the original Saw, again, I saw it in the theater when it first came out. And I really enjoyed it. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times. I had a good time with it, mainly to see the audience reactions, because that was always fun, especially with the the final twist at the end when he gets off the floor and the whole crowd's just like, whoa, like just having a good time with it. But yeah, it's very simple. My only problem when I go back to watch the original Saw, one of my big problems, is then you go and watch the sequels, and everybody has like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to do shit. Dr. Gordon gets like a day to do what he has to do, which is really out of place when you go back and rewatch this one. It's like, wait a minute, he gave him like 8 hours to cut his foot off. Like, dude, come on, man. The dude in the next movie in the opening scene literally has to cut his eyeball out in 60 seconds. Come on now. Like, that seems worse than cutting your foot off, honestly. And he has to do it in 60 seconds.
It's not meant to be a franchise.
No, it was. I don't think they thought that far ahead, honestly, because when you go back and do it, it's really out of place. Like the fact that you got these 2 guys that are having a scenario that is lasting as long as it does, it's really out of place. And like, don't get me wrong, the movie's still good, because we still get the pacing. And I think James Wan's direction is really good for what he has, like as far as the low budget and what he's able to do with the limited resources and the people that he has. And again, I still like the fact that the scenario between Gordon and what's his name? Lee Winnell, whatever his name is in the movie, I can't remember. Yeah, Adam. It's kind of like an escape room type thing. Like they're finding clues to get to clues to get to clues. All that stuff is fun. Kind of the revelations and all that stuff is good and fun. And the fact that, again, we didn't see it coming, that Sepp wasn't the bad guy. It was the dude on the floor, and it's Jigsaw. But you don't learn anything about Jigsaw. You're just kind of learning. You're hearing this voice, you're hearing a few things here and there, you're hearing detectives talk about him, but not a whole lot of backstory. And again, they would get into that in the sequels.
You know the voices and all that stuff, but on first watch, there's enough like subtleties where you're like, you don't know who it is.
You don't know who it is, because it could be any, because it's a voice. It's a modulation. Yeah, it's a mystery. You don't know what's going on. We get it. I like the fact that we really dig into the characters of Adam and Dr. Gordon. I mean, you don't get that in a lot of these movies. You really get to like dig into a lot of their stuff and what's going on with them, because they're the 2 main characters, and we have these flashes to other tests, here and there. The dude in the barbed wire, the dude in the wax room, all that kind of stuff. All the things. Yeah, Amanda doing her things with the bear trap, and Danny Glover's fun. It's the guy kind of going after him and kind of obsessed with him even after he gets let go. All that stuff is.
It's like a mad scientist. Like he's like kooky. He's the Charlie Day with all what you see his wall.
No, he literally has the wall on the thing and the articles, and all that the things where they're obsessed with it, and he's figuring out all the little clues. And I like the fact how one of my favorite little things is how he figures out the alarm on the little thing. He turns up the volume, that there's like an alarm going off, and he figures out the building with like the gang symbol. Like all that stuff is good. That's good detective work. I appreciate that. Again, he's a pretty smart character.
Second try, he'd been doing it for hours. Like it got to a point where we watched that tape so much, they're like, dude, get a life. He literally told him to get a girlfriend. You know what I mean? So like his obsessiveness finally paid off, but that doesn't happen often.
No. And again, it's really good. It's one of the better, original horror films, when it came out of the 2000s, it kind of started a
film they did with just the bear.
Well, yeah, sure. And just, again, but we saw that with stuff like Lights Out later on, where they did a short film and were expanded to full feature length, so that's cool. That's awesome. I mean, if people make a great short film and somebody wants to give money to make a feature film, cool. Sounds great, especially if it's the original filmmaker. But yeah, it's really, really solid. It just has a different feel than the other ones. And again, that comes with Darren Lynn Bousman's direction in the next couple ones and kind of the editing and things like that, that kind of the direction that they went. It's just this one, some of the dynamics of this one feel out of place when you go and revisit it. So that's why it's lower on my list than a little bit higher. That's really all it comes down to.
That's fair. So now we're gonna get picky at this point. So since this one is lower, what would you rate this out of 5? So
it's still like a 4 out of 5. It's still good. You know what I mean? I don't give out 5 stars a lot, you know, like it has to be really, really good for that, or just really, really fun, or something uber entertaining. But like, I don't do a whole lot of those star rankings a lot. I just kind of talk about the movie for the most part.
Have a letter, step it up.
I don't like to spoil it for you, man. So you can't go snooping on my letterbox and find out what I think of these movies. So I like to keep like I said on the messenger, I'm a man of mystery. That's why this is going to be a fun show. So yeah, but Saw is my number 4. And again, just because it kind of feels, when you go to rewatch it now, as opposed to when it first came out, it feels a little out of place with the other ones. But again, still quality. It just feels a little out of place. That's all.
And speaking of man of mystery, I will keep my thoughts on Saw mystery
for later.
So with that said, I will jump over to my number 4. It's not Saw, but it's Jigsaw, and that's the reason why I have my my differing opinions. Honestly, this is what is going to make this show is what's going to this episode specifically is going to it's going to make me and you the new Siskel and Ebert. How we're just going to go back.
Yeah, right.
It's like you're crazy because Jigsaw is fantastic. This is a movie where
you're gonna have to convince me, because I've seen it twice and it does nothing for me either time. Like I don't know, you're gonna have to convince me.
All right, so let's just put it this way: the quote unquote the gimmick of it being 10 years before is awesome because of how the editing in this movie. The Sperry brothers do a fantastic job of like continuously.
But it's a plot hole. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, let's.
They're using flat screens, but Dr. Gordon's using a pager in the same time period. Doesn't make sense.
Who's
technology-wise doesn't make sense.
Flashbacks. In the actual flashbacks, who's using a flat screen?
They're using the flat screen in the 10 years before stuff, dude. Like in the Jigsaw during the traps, like during the barn stuff. Yeah.
I don't think so. I'll have to.
Yeah, they are. Go watch it again, man. It doesn't make any sense technology-wise. Doesn't make no sense. Those things cost like $10,000 a piece back then, bro. I know, because my parents spent $1,000 on a 50-inch TV back then.
The point of what we're doing of building up this story of the present day stuff, it's similar to what I was talking about with Spiral, where it's like the difference on Spiral, where it's clearly meant to be inspired by, where this is a fake out. This one's a cop out, where it's like, hey, I work, within the police force, or like, technically like the medical thing. So he has like, all the information. So he's the setup. So he's like, I work within that. So I have all the information for all this 10-year stuff. So I have the specifics. I'll create my own game mimicking the game that never got out into the public. Cause at that point, Jigsaw wasn't out in the public. So all this is technically brand new. So the fact that, like I said, it's a gimmick, but the revelation of it being today or yesterday, it's both, because he technically is doing all that stuff today, but it's also before, because it's it's a mirror. And the fact that the concept of him being another helper, like you said earlier, the reason why it works for me is because he saved his life. He had an opportunity to, like, he's a man of the war, whether you can do like PTSD type of deal, or missing whatever, brotherhood, fatherhood, whatever you need. But like, it has the moment where he's like, he wants to have, that person with Jigsaw, and he has that relationship. So he does a good job of like being the muscle. So it's one of those things where it, like I said earlier, I've joked about this, but Saw does a good job of either smartly writing 8 movies ahead, or luckily making it work 8 movies later. You know what I mean? It does a really good job. And I feel like this is one of those where it's like, all right, so you have Dr. Gordon being the medical, you have Amanda being the muse, you have Hoffman and this guy being your muscle, you know what I mean? So you and the engineer, you have all these guys that are able to fill your parts. And when you think of Jigsaw and just his charisma and his father figure and how he's able to like get in the minds of these guys and like, get in their psyche, you believe that they're willing to like be for him, which is why you have those support groups later than Saw 7, where it's like, obviously in that movie it doesn't pay off, but it makes sense why you would have that type of stuff because of just the mindset that they put you in. And I think the one trap that I really liked was the one with the bike, the spiral, ironically, where he's in there because he sold the motorcycle to Jigsaw's, I think it was nephew, and the fact that it's personal, you know what I mean? You have a lot of that stuff. And then the one scene when they're doing the shot, the ass shot, and the one girl, how She robbed, I think it was a lady for like what, $2.36 or something.
Like a purse snatching thing, and then it
Yeah.
led to her, something else.
And
Yeah.
it's so petty where it's
Yeah.
like that's been Jigsaw's thing the entire time. He's like, you either take life for granted or you're just fucking wasting your life. And like that's the scenario where, if you really think of that character where, she's a white woman, where she, her life's probably not that bad, but she either ruined it with drugs or just, fucking around. And it's like Jigsaw has always been about like, don't waste your life. And that was from day one. And then, like you said, with the lasers, you actually have the laser payoff. And whether you knew it or not, by the end, it's a fun reveal when you see it, because it's like you said, you watched it twice. So I don't know if I'll let you speak for yourself if you notice this, but they actually show, it's just a quick thing. They show the ceiling, and the ceiling does not have holes, and you're like, oh fuck, that is awesome. So it's like whenever you have moments like that, regardless of whether you think the revelation and the reveal are cheap or blah blah blah, if there's things that point to that it makes sense and it's not a rug under there, then I'll buy it. I love it. So when you notice little things like that, so when you actually watch the scene knowing that it actually paid off, you're like, that's pretty cool. And then how they had the speech and he baited him into telling him the truth, and then right before that with the girl where you're like, just shoot the gun, and it goes backwards. And there's so many lines in this entire franchise where like, don't do this, and they're like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and it fucking no pun intended, backfires. You know what I mean? And like that's kind of like the theme of the entire franchise, where it's like, don't take life for granted. It's either live or die, and whatever you do, if you don't listen to me, it's going to backfire. So like I feel like this movie fits within, similar to Spiral, where it's not obviously exactly, but it fits enough within the franchise where it doesn't seem like it's an imitation, like a movie pretending to be Pulp Fiction or pretending to be Die Hard, where it's clearly not that. You can tell it's within this franchise. It just isn't the same, but you can tell it's within, you know what I mean? So you can think of it as a lesser one or whatever, but it's one of those ones where I feel like I've always hold a special part in my heart for this movie. For like when I first saw it in theaters, I was like, oh shit, this is why I love this. It kind of like reinvigorated and reinvented my love for the franchise. It reminded me that I love this franchise. So when I went back and did a rewatch, I'm like, hell yeah, this is why. So maybe I have a soft spot for it. That's fair, because whenever I look at reviews,
I had the opposite, because I went into the theater hyped up and I came out just being like, oh man, like I just want to go watch one of the other ones now, because like this just didn't do it for me. Like this just didn't feel right. Going back and just doing more retconning and like adding another apprentice just like makes it more and more complicated. Like, it's as complicated at this point as like the Texas Chainsaw or Halloween, timelines, where it's just like all right, gotta
girl, how she's a super fan, and it kind of sets her up to potentially be the person, similar to what I was talking about, like with Chris Rock and Spiral, where it's like there's enough breadcrumbs that like if they did do that twist later on, you believe it, but if they don't, it doesn't feel cheap. We're like, oh no, blah blah blah, that was a waste of time. Like they just do enough where she's just a fan, you know what I mean? And she's just a worker, and she works with the main guy. So it's like when he finds out being all this stuff, like they're close, so like she didn't see it because she sees him, you know what I mean? There's enough going on where it's like, I don't know, it's a lot of fun, and it just plays in it plays in a thing with the concept of the dirty cop, which follows up later with Spiral. So I feel like that's just kind of where they want to take the franchise into the anti-cop thing. But hey, if it makes sense with the story and it's interesting, that doesn't bother me none, as someone who loves police movies, and I'm always rooting for them. So Jigsaw is a movie, like I said, holds a special part of my heart. It's a lot of fun. It goes back to being a short, swift, fun movie, and it's just a lot of fun for me. So I've never judged anyone for not liking the movie. I'm definitely bummed out it's at your bottom, like solidified at your bottom. That definitely hurts my heart a little bit, so I'm definitely judging you a little bit.
It's pretty solid at the bottom. Like it's solid at the bottom, because like at this point I'd rather watch at least Saw 3D. Like still feels like a classic Saw movie, like even if it's not done particularly well. This one just feels like an imitator where they're trying to add to something, but it just makes it even more convoluted than it already is, and it makes you go back and go like, oh no, like, well then why the hell wasn't Logan mentioned in any of the other movies? Or like, where's Logan been for 10 years? Like this Logan guy, there's a reason when they did Spiral they don't mention Logan. Like who cares about Logan? Like fuck Logan. Like he's stupid. Like nobody cares about this, which is why they just dropped it.
I'm gonna clip that out and just send that to Jordan and break his heart. Fuck Logan.
Fuck Logan. Yeah, no. He's like, what's he talking shit about that movie? My favorite movie? Yeah, fuck Logan.
So I mean, that's
Who
fine.
cares about Logan? It just does. It didn't work for me, man. I'm happy that it works for you, but like, it just doesn't work for me.
I feel like we need to do a watch along with this, where we just sit back.
Oh my god, I would fall asleep. I'd have to be drinking.
You're off. You won't. So let's go.
We need to do some. We need to do some watch-alongs. That could be fun. Do like a live commentary track for something. Like I could literally broadcast right here, and over in my corner, I have like my giant TV. I could have it on my giant TV, just kind of like looking like this, while commentating. And I think we could do that one day. That'd be fun.
There's plenty.
I'd be down with that.
We can. There's plenty of. I'm pretty sure to let me actually stream all the stuff I have on here. So we'll get into the logistics, and it'll definitely be Jigsaw first. But before we get into Jigsaw live commentary, what is your number 3?
Oh my god! All right, my number 3 is Saw 4. Saw 4 is my number 3. So pretty solidly in my top 3, and I know you're a fan of this one too. So yeah, it's in my top 3. And yeah, it's another one I was able to rewatch, and I dig. I don't know, just dig the vibe of this one. I dig what they're going for in this one. With Riggs and the stuff he's going through with his story of him just wanting. Like, he just wants to be a good guy so bad. He wants to be a hero so bad. He just wants to, his whole story is he wants to save everyone. And, the fact that he cares so much. Yeah, no, it's his downfall, but like, I can at least admire and get behind that. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to be a good guy. Like, he's a purely good dude. He's not a corrupt cop. Like, he's not a bad guy. Like, the only thing you could fault him for is, like a lot of cops, he doesn't spend a lot of time with his family because he's so obsessed with his job. But like, I feel like they touch on that a lot. I mean, even in Spiral. Well, even in Spiral, they touch on that. Chris Rock is going through a divorce because he's like,
if you're gonna be a cop, get used to divorce.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the same old same old. We've seen that in Heat, we've seen that in a bunch of movies. So it's that's fine, but he's such a good guy, and he just wants to be a hero. He wants to save everybody. He cares a lot about Donnie Wahlberg, about Matthews so much that he just he can't leave it alone. Like, people are just like, leave it alone. He's been gone 6 months. He's like, no, like I'm not gonna let it go till we either find him or find a body. Like, I will not rest until we have closure on this. Like, we need closure, and he finds both. So spoiler for the end of the movie, but oh my god, I feel so bad for Matthews in this movie. Like, the fact that he just sits in a cell for 6 months, just like rotting away. His hair is all disgusting. He hasn't had a bath in 6 months. He's eating slop, and then his ending after 6 months of sitting in the cell going crazy is he gets hung on a block and gets his head smashed in. Like, oh, that sucks.
By the guy that was trying to save him. Talking about
by the guy that saves him. Oh my god. And the dude who's orchestrating half of it just sitting right next to you. Like, that sucks. And he's a fellow cop. Like, that sucks. It just sucks. And no, I mean, it's but again, it's kind of doing the similar thing of Saw 3, which again, when you find out at the end that it's coinciding with Saw 3, it makes sense that he's like encountering people on his own. It's sort of both their tests and things like that, and some of them he helps, some of them he doesn't, or some of them he's directly involved and some he's not so directly involved. You know what I mean? Like, the teachers in the class, or the couple in the class, he's not really doing much there. It's just like their test that he just kind of encounters, and the guy in the hotel. I mean, he is. It's just kind of a thing, progression. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of just cool set pieces. I think the scalping trap is really cool. It's a good concept. I like the. I like the one in the motel where the creepy fat dude gets his limbs pulled off. That stuff is crazy fun. It's just got a good vibe to it. It's got really good pacing, some awesome directorial transitions in this movie that they did practically, where somebody will get smashed into a mirror and they go right into the interrogation room. That was practical on a set. That wasn't like an edit. Like, they smash through and it literally goes into the interrogation room, and it's one shot. Oh, dude, go back and watch it. Like, if you listen to the commentary of the movie, they talk about that, how they built these sets, these connecting sets where they would bust through a wall, but then it would cut to people talking in an interrogation room. It's all one shot because they just went right into the other room. It's awesome. So there's some really good, cool filmmaking going on.
Hoffman's it's his third chance now, so he's learned.
Oh, he's mastered it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's got it down. He's got the formula down. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to deliver the editing and tensing up. I think the last 5 minutes of this movie kills. Like, I think it's really good. As all the stuff between that and Saw 3 is like all building to a climax. Yeah, right. Hey, Malcolm, glad you're watching. Malcolm's like, all these movies suck. They're all man, they're all fine. It's like,
don't click on the
yeah,
video.
so,
Franchise. We're fans.
anyways, but yeah, no, Saw 4 is really solid, and yeah, the pacing, the story, yeah, the payoffs of Matthews, the payoff of the connection with Saw 3. I mean, a lot of it just really works, and you still got Strom running around, being kind of the head lead guy, and
like we talked about earlier with Saw 5, it sets him up as a good character, good smart character. Honestly, he doesn't do anything crazy at this point. This is him just being a good, FBI agent. You know what I mean? He's just
he's figuring stuff out quickly. He's like noticing details. He's interrogating Jill, but he's like figuring things out. He's like, no, you're not telling me this. You're not telling me that.
And like after he went out though, so it gives it time to like boil and like really get cooking in his mind. So you're actually, it's a visual thing where you're like, oh, it just sinks in. You know how in like movies you're like, ding, light bulb. Like, no, this is him going out, coming back. Like, oh no, that's it. And you're like, that's how real life. Like, you just notice it, and then you go back, and that's a great job of like he does it. He does a good job. Like, you don't really see that guy in much stuff, but like when you think of him,
well, and that Scott Patterson, the actor, who actually, oddly enough, the one thing I knew him from is Seinfeld. He's Elaine's Sponge-worthy boyfriend. If you know Seinfeld, he's Sponge-worthy. I don't know if you know Seinfeld at all, but anybody who's watching knows Seinfeld. He was Sponge-worthy, and if you know Seinfeld, you know what that means. Okay, thank you, Malcolm. I just thought he might have a hot take on it.
Yeah, as I pointed on here, I didn't want to like interrupt the pacing because we're just talking about, but it's also
there you go.
So
nice.
At this point, this is a movie that I just feel like it is just out of the entire. I feel like this is the only movie in the entire franchise that is just everything just boom go on, and that's Darren Lynn Bous's understanding. Like we're talking about the direction, the pacing. At this point, everything is established. There's no backtracking at this point. Anything that even if it's the Hoffman stuff, putting the vanilla envelope in there for Amanda, sure. Was that written for Saw 3 and we just got lucky, or was it, were they written at the same time? Who knows? But you don't even think twice. You're like, boom, like you don't even second guess. You're like, it makes so much sense. And what I think I love about this movie, and it didn't click until this watch for some reason, is the very obvious. I mean, I knew this part, but like it just clicked emotionally how I felt about it. But the very beginning of the movie is the end of the movie. Like him and like seeing going into John Kramer's body and him getting his tape. That is his test for Saw 5. And it's at the beginning. So like you're like, man, they like we talk about this, they write so much stuff and it's crazy. And it's like if you think that this is just a dumb, stupid, gory franchise, you're wrong. And you need to sit back and actually just pay attention. I'm not acting like it's the highest brow, but it's a
no, but it's smarter than the titles of the movie and the franchise on first glance. It's smarter than you think it would be. Yeah. It's way smarter than your average Friday the 13th movie or Halloween movie. You know what I mean? Again, I love the Halloween franchise and I love the Friday the 13th franchise, but the Saw franchise they just dig in and they don't hold back. And it's like you're either going to follow us and you're going to be with us head on. You're going to keep pace with us, or whatever. We're going to leave you behind and we're going to do our thing and you keep up. You know what I mean? And it's like, but that's what makes it fun. I remember. Just a quick side tangent. A buddy of mine named Tom, who I used to work with, he came over one day and he had never seen him in the Saw movies, and I had them all on DVD at the time. And I was like, "Oh, let's watch the first one. Why not?" And he was like, "Cool. Is there a sequel?" I was like, "Hell yeah, there's a sequel." Because at the time, there was 4, and the 5th one had just come out like that weekend. The 5th one had, and then so we literally ended up. It was just supposed to be us hanging out. He came over at like lunchtime. We watched all 4 of them that afternoon. Like we binged all the way through them, and then he was like, should we just go watch the 5th one right now? And I was like, you know what? Why the fuck not? And we went and we found like a 9:30 show at like a theater and went and watched it. So we did a 5-movie marathon that day, like a home marathon in that. And then backtrack to when I first saw Saw 4, I actually saw an in-theater marathon of Saw 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it was leading up to the premiere of 4. So it started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the fourth one premiered at 10 and kind of let out at midnight. So that was a lot of fun. I do remember going to see that. Seeing a marathon of 1 through 4 just worked, man. It was just super fun.
That is
super fun seeing the theater.
Franchise. There is not many franchises in the entire world in the history of cinema where you can literally watch 1 through 4 and be as satisfied as you are with Saw 1 through 4. Like, even if you're not a fan of the franchise, you will not complain about watching Saw 1 through 4, because it'll honestly, if you watch 1 through 4 consecutively and marathon them, you will become a fan because of what. Like, this is a trilogy of 4 movies. It's a quadrilogy it's oh my, if it ended there, like if they figured out a way to just end it there, oh my god, it would be most perfect stuff. Don't get me wrong, I talk about it. I like Saw 5 a lot even, but like it was just 1 through 4 perfection, like the way that they just everything.
Well, and like I was telling you, it's like 1 through 4 is kind of like the Jigsaw quadrilogy, is what I call it, and then like 5 through 7 is like the Hoffman saga. You know what I mean? The Hoffman Jill kind of saga.
Like, turn that into its own franchise, and obviously you got to come up with the Book of Saw, Hoffman, the Book of Saw. And it just became, because then it would have. I feel like you would have had more like weight to that character. You would have developed more because now he's the main guy. But that's a tangent. But my point is 1 through 4. Oh my god, I love it.
It's just because literally he's dead at the end of 3/4. You know what I mean? He's literally gone, dead. So like, you still get the videos, you still get the tapes, you still get the whatever, the flashback performances.
I get it,
but it shifts focus. But like, it's just kind of cool how they shifted and kind of refocused. But Saw 4 kills. Especially again, if you watch 1 through 4, 4 is a great finale. It's a lot of fun.
Exactly. So that was both of our number 3. So I will let you bounce over to your number 2.
I gotta pick. I told you these could flip flop.
So let's just put it this way. I hope you pick one over the other.
Screw it. Number 2 is Saw 2.
Damn it.
Number 2 is Saw 2. Number 2 is Saw 2.
Damn it. You're gonna break my heart. Oh my god.
So you know what's coming. But I'll talk about it when I get there. But if you can do the math, you can figure it out.
You sway me like I tried to sway you.
I may not sway you, but it'll be like the Hateful Eight. You'll see. being my number, so high on my list. Anyways, but Saw 2, we kind of touched on it already. It's a lot of fun. It's like a haunted house of horrors, escape room, type thing with these characters, running through this house. It's a great setting just for like all the different traps. We open this door, open that door, and it's a whole new setup, for a certain person. That's a lot of fun while still finding little hidden compartments and clues. And, it just keeps you on your toes, and it keeps pace with all the stuff with kind of the countdown of, he's still shaking his head. Number 1 is.
I'm setting up our full, like how the top.
Right. It's gonna be way off at the top and the bottom.
God. Go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry.
I always throw them off. No, that's what's fun about the show. But no, I mean, we didn't really touch on much earlier, but the flip side of the other story, it's Tobin Bell's best movie to shine. But with just him, the sit down between him and Donnie Wahlberg, with him and Matthews, just having the face to face, back and forth conversation, you really get, again, because we. Anything really about Jigsaw in the first movie, the fact that they bring in Tobin Bell, they let him act his ass off in this one and really dig into the character and dig into his philosophies. Again, whether or not you agree with them, he is a murderer, but like letting him explain why he thinks he's not is still interesting. And his, villain, explaining away why he's right as a villain, which again makes for interesting villains as far as like, when they think they're right. It's always interesting, but the back and forth between him and Donnie, I think, is really good. Wahlberg's actually really good in this movie. I think it's probably one of his best performances since The Sixth Sense. I think it's really, really good. He's in the opening of The Sixth Sense, if you forgot, by the way.
I'm not saying he's not a real actor, but at this point, you would think he's like Mark, and you would assume that they're having the same trajectory at this point. He's so good in this.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Again, Shawnee Smith is really good as Amanda in this one, playing the Ding. No, that's and I almost wonder if a reboot's coming where they're just going to call it Saw and it's going to be pissing me off like all the other horror franchises that are calling it the same, Candyman and all this shit. But anyways, Saw 2 is just great pacing. Great back and forth. Both the stories are interesting. The police side with Donnie and Tobin Bell going back and forth is all that's fun. All the House of Horror stuff is fun, and a phenomenal twist with the two-sided twist of it. A being all pre-recorded and having already happened, on the screens and everything, and Shawnee Smith being the accomplice, and then B with the kid being in the safe the whole time. But again, if you listen to the rules, all Jigsaw said was, you just have to sit here and talk to me, and you'll find your son in a safe and secure location. That's all you got to do is sit here and talk to me, or listen to me, or whatever, in a safe and secure location. But he wasn't lying. The thing opens up and he's right there and he's fine. But it's a great twist, like a phenomenal twist. And it's really, really good. Just they pulled it off. I think it's one of the best direct sequels in horror history, like, going from Saw 1 to Saw 2. I think it's just really, really solid. It just works for me. I really like Saw 2. Saw 2 just works.
Yeah, just to go back on it, it's one of those where it's the most day in the life one, because I feel like you're not bouncing around from room to room. You're just in one location, so it's one of those where you, like I said, you get the most opportunity to like feel for these characters without like overdoing everything.
You get enough without having to dig in too much. You get all the kind of characterizations. You get a little bit of backstory here and there, but all the characters are different enough to where you can tell them all apart. They're not just bland. Like everybody is different. Everybody stands out. So that definitely helps, because it's like, oh, there's the girl from Seventh Heaven, and there's the dude from Speed, and there's Frankie G as Xavier, and there's like, and there's Johnny Smith, and there's the kid. Like everybody's different. So like, and there's the other dude who, the scuzzy looking dude who kidnapped everybody. Everybody's unique. You can tell everybody apart, and that helps. When there's a big cast. The fact that they all kind of stand out from one another.
Yeah. So I feel like it's one of those where it's overlooked because it doesn't have. You can tell it's missing the James Wan direction, which I like. Bowser, obviously. His, like I said, his 1 through 4, technically for him 2 through 4, and obviously me liking Spiral. But like you can just tell, like for the general audience, they're missing the James Wan touch. But I feel like for a lot of people, go back, watch the franchise, you're gonna realize that it's swift, it's fun, it's creepy, it's got good traps, and it has a nice payoff. You know what I mean? It's one of those where you're like, it's really got everything that you need in a Saw movie. And like I said, the only reason it's lower on my list of my 5 stars is just because of the fact I don't have that emotional connection. That's the only thing.
Right.
But
it's a fun movie. It's super entertaining. Like it flies by. It's great. It's awesome. Yeah.
Out of all of them, this is probably the best like Halloween one to watch, because it's the most like haunted house style, like you're talking about. Like it's the one that
it's like literally they're going from a spooky room to a spooky room. You don't know what's coming. You open this door, you have no idea what's going to be behind the door. It's like just like a haunted house. You go from room to room, you don't know what's coming, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, super fun.
All right,
great sequel.
My number 2. 2 left. Done the math. You know what I'm gonna hopefully say. I thought about making this one my number 1 because of how much emotionally connected I am, but I just couldn't because of just the pacing. And like at this point, if we're nitpicking, you got to nitpick. The 2-hour length, you do feel it just a tad.
Yeah.
I love everything that Jeff's going through. Like, hold on, I literally wrote this in my review today on Letterboxd. Shout out Letterboxd. Confidential too, but I love that, or just H Confidential Instagram. But anyway, I love the fact that like you're like, oh my god, Jeff's a dick. Like in the scene when he's with his daughter and she's like, don't touch his stuff, and like you're like, oh my god, he's a shitty dad.
Yeah.
Like touches her hair, he's like really not a shitty dad. He's just grieving. You know what I mean? So there's layers to him as a character. And then even in the very opening, everything with Lynn when she's with that guy and he's like, what do you want from me? He's like, I want a divorce. And you don't realize technically what that means until later.
Yeah, what that actually means. No, I want you to divorce him, not divorce. Yeah. It's laid out.
Plug and you do and gimmicky stuff while being smart about it. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what this franchise does. The breadcrumbs. I'm telling you, if you hear me talk about movies online, breadcrumbs are my favorite things. I don't care if it makes the most sense, but if you sprinkle enough in there that I'll buy it by the end, even if it clearly is retroactively inserted and you just got lucky, which this franchise does a lot of that, but if you got lucky, but as long as there's enough there, I love that. And with this movie, I feel like they were like, let's just I feel like this is the only movie in the franchise where they didn't start at the end. They wrote this as an entire thing, and which is why they did the 2 hours. This is an epic. Like this is an entire journey of Jeff's character growing by the end to ruin it all, to not only not save his wife or technically his daughter, which he finds out later he ruins that. We talked about that before. He ruined that immediately, but also just his anger and his grief and how he doesn't do anything technically right, but he starts to grow, and you're like, oh my God, hell yeah, he finally did it. Ruined it right away. I forgive you. And then he saws him, and then the smile that Tobin Bell, John Kramer gives him, he's like, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna die anyway. I want to die winning my game. I'm winning my game on this one. You killing me is me winning. And that's the one time I feel like John Kramer's legitimately diabolical. He's like, I want a death. But
it's like Kevin Spacey as John Doe at the end of 7 when he knows that Brad Pitt's going to shoot him, and he just kind of closes his eyes and he knows it's coming, because he knows he's won. Is that he's about to die, but he's going to win the game. Yeah. It's and once again, Jigsaw is a murderer. He is a murderer. Anybody who thinks otherwise, you need to get your head examined because he's a murderer. But yes, he's testing a grieving father. Good guy. You're a good dude, man. A grieving father who really needs therapy. Good job, Jigsaw. But yeah, you're a nice dude. No, you're a sociopath killer. But still, putting all that aside, it's still, it's still. I like a lot of the themes in it. Literally, the only issue I have is why it's lower is just the pacing and the fact that it's like 2 hours and it just kind of feels like 2 hours. But again, not that I am ever bored or necessarily complaining about that, but it just kind of, there's a few scenes I think a few things could have been trimmed here and there and just cut down just a tad without losing a lot of the the themes of the movie or the character beats, things like that. Just could have tightened it up a little bit. That's all. We didn't need Jeff doing the box back and forth like 90 times before he breaks it. Like, let's just get the box open. Let's start moving. Let's get this thing moving. You know what I mean? Let's move.
It's a defense. I think that's more along the lines of him just growing as a character, of just not willing to rip the Band-Aid off of, like, it's a metaphor. His methodic pacing is more of like how his mindset is, getting over the death of his child, where it's like he's just, because if he takes one step forward into this game, he needs to get one step closer to closure with his son, and he eventually does it, but it takes a long time to finally burn all the stuffed animals for his son, and he does it to save a life. Like, the irony of that is, not only is he finally doing something good, he has to do something good to save a life, to save the life of the judge who barely gave a sentence to the guy who killed his son. And here's a reminder, your son's dead, and you have to burn the only memories you have of him physically. You know what I mean? Like, I feel it's a full circle thing. Like, so it's methodic, and don't get me wrong, it was a choice, but I respect it because it really gets you into the mindset, and it really makes you feel for Jeff. And by the end, you're rooting for him. So when he does F up, it sucks. So yes, I get technically, if we're really, nitpicking, yeah, of course, but I have an issue. I don't have an issue with the length as a whole. Just if we're nitpicking rankings, obviously.
No, that's why, if I'm nitpicking rankings, same with me, why it's a little lower than some of these other ones, just because, if I have to nitpick something to rank these movies, you know what I mean? If I have to, I just have to cut it just a tad lower. That's all.
All right. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go to your number one.
My number one is Saw 6. Saw 6 is awesome. Saw 6 rocks, and I'm not alone in that. I was browsing Reddit threads. I am not alone in this. Saw 6 kills. It's awesome. It's so much fun. It's so stupid entertaining. It's so ridiculously bonkers that the fact that Kevin Grader, who was a production designer and an editor on the movies, he takes over as director and he goes, fuck it, we're going all in with the insanity of a Saw premise, and we're going to see how absurd we can get with this thing. Let's just rock it. And he goes, you know what? We're going to comment on mortgage loans. We're going to comment on the healthcare system. We're going to go political. We're going to have so much fun, but we're going to tie it in again to Jigsaw's story, and we're going to make it personal.
A Jigsaw movie, this would be it. So that
dude, and because Jigsaw has a personal stake in this again with this healthcare stuff, it connects to his philosophies on life. This guy, the CEO, who has this team and his own thing of who deserves to get coverage, who deserves to live, and who deserves to die. It's the mirror image of Jigsaw, and the fact that it's this parallel. So it makes sense when you start digging into it and thinking about it. He's going to put this guy and his policies to the test throughout this whole thing. He gets to decide who lives and who dies in a lot of these scenarios. The two people, the older lady who has the kids or the loner guy, and he gets to just put his policy to the test, who he wants to kill. This is the one where where Jigsaw, if you're still on the fence of whether or not he's a murderer, Saw 6 cements the fact that he's a murderer because he has the carousel trap where literally 4 people have to die. There's no way they can save themselves. You just killed 4 people. So, and only 2 people get to live. You're a murderer. But anyways,
established early when Amanda's body ends up being alive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
no. When she has to go over and gut the guy to get a key out, like that guy's gonna die. So yeah, he's a murderer. Like that guy was gonna die regardless. But yes. Anyways, I'm just saying they go full bore. If you were still on the fence about it, Saw 6 cements that. That's kind of why I like it. They're just like, fuck it, let's just throw it out the window. Let's just make him a complete nutcase. Let's just throw it out there. Let's have this connection. The fact that it's again some of the few in-person videos and things, like he's doing the videos like face to face. He's not talking through a doll. He's like just talking to the guy, on the TV, just hello, William. You may not, you remember me, that sort of shit. It's like we didn't talk about it in Saw 4, but that's why I love the Cecil trap, the primitive one with the knives, because he's literally does it in person right in front of him, which is a lot of fun, where he's just like, your life is a lie, Cecil.
That's the best metaphor, where John Kramer is one step ahead, because he takes one step ahead, Cecil goes right into the barbed wire, because he knew.
Yeah.
You watch him set in front of it, kind of like do a weird like pose. Ready for you, motherfucker.
And then he kind of like holds his hands out, like, "Are you gonna come get me?" And he just steps. Yeah, no. But all that stuff is great. But anyways, getting back to Saw 6, I think it also just. It has like the best final 5 minutes, I think, of any of the movies, dude. When you get to the end and dude like gets in front of the 2 cages and you find out that the chick is like his wife and the other 2 people are the son and the wife of the guy who he put a death sentence on, and they get to decide whether he lives or dies, and the mom can't do it, and then the kid just goes, "You killed my dad, motherfucker," and he hits the thing and he gets pumped full of acid and his body falls apart, and then you get the double climax where Jill has Hoffman right where she wants him, puts the bear trap on his head. Okay, Hoffman's finally going out, and no, he kicks his own hand in with the thing, and he puts the bear trap last minute into the bars, and he breaks out of the bear trap and rips his jaw open. It's
the only
awesome.
time in the entire franchise you see it in use, or no, the first time. Later, I retract that. The first time that we see it on a person used. And then the second time, with Jill, we actually see
the only time we ever see it kill anybody is Saw 7 when Jill gets it. When Jill gets it put on her head. But the fact that Hoffman does that and you're just like, oh man, I hate that guy, but he's such a badass. What a bad motherfucker that guy is. That's awesome.
Robotic form, but that is.
Yeah, he's a total Terminator. This dude kicks ass, and the fact that he's like he overcomes the 3 cops and the thing and still covers up. Yeah, he's the Hoffman 3000, dude. He's awesome. And like I dig it, man. All the traps that dude goes through are like a lot of fun. The boiler room stuff, the dude they go full absurd with this one. He's testing a guy because he's a smoker. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, that's the criteria.
Like the most wild and goofy and stupid, but fun. I respect that.
Your person across from you has smoked his whole life and corrupted his. Get the fuck out of here. Him and 50 million other Americans. Like, get out of here, dude. That's your criteria.
Asthma got to him.
He was just a janitor at the place. He didn't have anything to do with your shitty policies. Like, get out of here. He's just trying to make a living. It's like, I just appreciate the fact that they like they just throw it out the window and like, fuck it, we're just gonna make a crazy, stupid, fun, entertaining Saw movie, and we're gonna make Hoffman a Terminator, and we're gonna like do this shit, and like we just go all out, man. I fucking love Saw 6.
Right.
Like, and I rewatched it a few days ago, and like the whole time I was just like, oh, this is great, this is so good, like this is so much fun. I just love it.
I'm gonna watch it again, hammered. And I will literally base my ranking on it, how I judge it. So if it skyrockets 4 or 5 spots, is what it is.
It's a great drunk Saw movie. It's a great drinking Saw movie. It's great.
Word. If I jump it like 4 or 5 spots because I'm hammered and I said, "Fuck it, who cares?" Then hey, I'm sticking with it. You know what I mean? So I will give you that. So I will give it another chance, drunk, because I'm having a lot of fun talking about it right now. But these hiding so
dude, to me, the fact that they just leaned so into the absurd, like they're just like, we're gonna quit taking this shit so seriously. Let's just go all in. Let's go get stupid with it. Like, let's just get silly. Let's have a horror movie that's commenting on people giving out bad loans. Like, come on, this is awesome. Like, this rocks.
Movie.
It's the big Saw short. The Big Short Saw, whatever you want to call it.
You heard of Jigsaw? Well, this is Big Saw.
Yeah. Short Saw.
Oh,
no, it's I can't get enough of it, man. It's so silly. And like, even the critics, if you go back and look at Rotten Tomatoes, they're just like even some of them who hated all the Saw movies, like in their reviews are like, this is so absurd that it's so fun. Like, this is so absurd and so silly. Like, I'm glad they embraced the silliness. Like, that's what most of the reviews actually said. Like, I'm glad they quit taking this shit so seriously and just went full on absurd, like, with it. You know what I mean? So that's what I appreciate about it too. It's just a great rewatch. It's just one you can just jump into and have a lot of fun with. It's really, really fun.
This technical B franchise has a B movie. That how do you describe it as a B movie?
It's a B movie within a B franchise. Yeah, it's nuts. It's very meta. It's a very, you almost feel like the movie itself could be like, you watch Saw movies all your life. Now I'm gonna put you to the test, like within the Saw movie
of the Saw franchise, where it's like it does enough that you need to be a good horror movie, but it's so wild and crazy that like that's
it's a movie you feel like somebody within the movie, like Jigsaw, could be like, you've enjoyed my movies for a long time and you have a sick, perverse mind for enjoying these movies. Like, now I'm gonna really put your enjoyment of my traps to the test, shit like that. Like, make some shit like that.
I've been denying being a murderer this whole time.
Yeah.
I admit it now.
I admit it. I'm a total murderer. Like, screw it. I just kill people because I'm a sociopath and I'm a lunatic and I've gone off the deep end. So,
all right, guys. So we have 2 viewers currently watching live. We've had a few jump in and out. So for YouTube viewers and also for anyone watching on the rewatch, comment below your ranking 1 through 9, including Spiral. What are your thoughts? So 1 through 7, Saw, Jigsaw, and Spiral. Comment below your rankings and as I say in every video that me and Austin do, what is your number 1 most disagreed take from either of our list? Because obviously that's how it goes. Everyone's going to disagree. For me, you are wild thinking Jigsaw is crazy, and I'm crazy thinking Jigsaw or Saw 6 is bad. You know what I mean? So that's still have our easily. Hey. There's no question about it. That's why, trust me, spoiler alert.
Well, and last one, it was you had Hateful Eight pretty low. I had Hateful Eight almost at the top, and I had Reservoir Dogs. Not that I had it bad, but I had it like number 6, and yours was like 1 or 2, something like that. And and it was So we have, and then we have our weird similarities in the middle where it's like
that's how it goes. Like it's
and then we have like even on this list, like the ones that are just one apart, they're real similar, and then it's like we have these radical ones. That's what makes the show so fun.
So much fun. So with that said, time to get generic, time to get basic.
With Saw, I know.
So my number 1 is Saw.
And
the reason that Saw is my number 1, and like I said, when I was talking about
Saw is your number 1, just like Pulp Fiction is your number 1, right, Henry?
So the reason that Saw is my number 1, so I'm glad I did a 1 through 4 rewatch on my big screen, because the last time I did is when I was at work, which when I'm at work I can watch on my phone and I'm focused.
Right.
I can still know what I'm watching, but there's something about watching them on the screen for what I was looking for this rewatch, which was the emotional, how do I feel by the end? And this is the only one at the end where I got the chills. I didn't get the emotions, but this is the one where I'm like, as soon as that score kicks in for the first time technically in the entire franchise. Oh my god, like the chills, like this is like you think of a top tier score, this is what you're looking for, you know what I mean? And that's that reveal. And obviously, in hindsight, you're like, oh, that's it's a good twist, but like in the context of the story and the franchise as a whole, especially when you in Saw 3 when they actually like do the flashback of actually painting, painting the picture, painting the blood, painting the X.
Yeah.
Actually do that.
No, when he's prepping the bathroom and they're prepping the whole scenario.
I was watching Saw 3, which is another reason why Saw 3 and Saw 1 are my my two favorites. As I was watching that flashback scene, I got chills because it just brought me back to joy from Saw 1. So yes, and I even wrote this on my review on Letterboxd. Saw 1 is the one where they literally made it not expecting a franchise. So they kind of crammed in some random shit that they kind of made later retroactive because they're like, it just, how it's so simple that, you can't really screw it up. You just have to think a little bit, but it's so episodic in this movie. When you get out of that bathroom with Dr. Gordon and Adam and the scenes you have with Zepp later on and the few scenes with Tap, for the most part, when you get out of those main four characters, everything else, like with all the kills and the traps and even the little bit with Gordon when he's like, let's listen to Amanda's story and all that stuff, it just seems episodic. It seems like an episode of Law and Order. But when you think of the big picture of what you're getting at, it's just like, I fucking love it, dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, this is what Saw is. You know what I mean? Like everything that you have from this franchise is from this. And I never say the thing like, without this one, you don't have the other ones. But what I'm saying is without this one, you don't build and you don't feel the other ones. And that's a difference. It's not the like, oh, you don't have them at all. You don't feel it. This set the foundation for the entire John Kramer storyline. And you don't even know it at the point in this movie. And that's what makes it even more fantastic. Because when you go back and watch, you're like, oh my God, everything that built up started here. You just don't realize it. And like they got lucky and there's smart writing later on. I give them credit for that. And that's why the Saw 1 through 4 little quadrilogy is legitimately my favorite with Jigsaw stuck in there because it kind of does a little, sneak around. But the point is, Saw 1 is the one by the end I am the most satisfied. And honestly, that's why it makes it ironic because at the end of Saw 5, it's a very contradictory, weird, satisfying I have at Saw 5, but it's the most closest that I have out of all of them is by the end of Saw 1 because it's like, oh my God, wow, everything just bing, bong, bang, set the tone like this. What we're doing, you can't pick any flaws from Saw 1 specifically. You can go later and like, oh, this not 100%, it's like a 98% match DNA. You know what I mean? It's close, but it's not perfect. You could pick some flaws, but within Saw 1, everything is painted great, and James Wan and Lee Wanell did a fantastic job. A lot of people like to no pun intended from the fun fact I'm going to say after this, but they like to shit on Lee Wanell's acting. But when you think of it, he's just a punk kid photographer who's, imagine, Peter Parker without his Spider-Man powers getting trapped. He's just a whiny brat. Luke Skywalker, whiny brat. You know what I mean? Kind of like that's just what he is. Not a big deal. He's scared. He's a punk kid. It's not a big deal. And obviously you get lucky that his bad acting fits with the character. My fun fact with this, and I didn't notice this until this rewatch, the scene when he finds the hacksaws in the back of the toilet. Before that, he sticks his hand in
the toilet. But first he sticks his hand in the regular part of the toilet, not the back of the toilet.
I never thought about it. I actually watched this. His hand is brown and shitty for like the next 20-30 minutes. They're so consistent with it, and eventually it just wears off. And my point is, imagine how smelly that fucking bathroom is. The fact that he does it, he forgets that his hand is covered in shit. He doesn't wipe it off. It just dries like fucking old plastic. Like that's disgusting. But it's so smart that my point of bringing it up is it's so smart. The consistency, it keeps the shit on his hand. His hand is brown. His hand and his shirt become brown by the end of the movie because just how dirty and lived in and fucking like you made a joke about it earlier, but 6 hours within this room, their characters get 6 hours worth of disgustingness on. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. And then you have, you just have Dr. Gordon, the one scene when it's a character moment for Adam when he looks into his wallet and he sees the hostage picture of Dr. Gordon or Diane, and he's just like, oof, I can't show him this because that just it gives him a little humanity. Because
Oh yeah,
when he does his reveal, he's like, you know who I am, and you think it's cheap, but like you got to remember he got zapped, and that just refreshes memory, and like he's just
yeah.
and you actually listen to his monologue, he doesn't hate him as a person. He just hates him as a scumbag. And then once he finds out he didn't really cheat on his wife, it kind of gets thrown out. But at the time, that's why he's kind of being a squirmy like cock, where he's like, you know who I am. You waste, you rich bastards. I take pictures of you all the time. Blah blah blah. That's how I get paid. But then once you realize he didn't actually cheat on his wife, but it draws out that raw emotion from Gordon. I did not cheat on her, and it's like that's one thing. You're like, because it never really explicitly says up until that point, and you believe him at that. You know what I mean? You really do. Because then when you do the flashback, he's like, I can't do this. He stops her. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah. But the temptation, because you're talking about earlier with the cop stuff of the divorce, but doctors are the same way. They're away from their wives all the time. The people, you know what I mean? There's character
constantly getting called to different things. Yeah, there's no family connection. Yeah, you're like you're providing for your family, but like you're not there physically or emotionally sometimes. Yeah, it's the same shit with that. Yeah, to me also the original Saw just, again, we talk a lot about the last 5-10 minutes, but man, like that climax of that movie kills. Like that stuff, like that's fine. That's fine. I said my piece. But anyways, but like I really feel it, and I start getting goosebumps, like some real moments when Carrie Elway's like, when she says you failed on the phone, and then the phone's ringing, and he can't reach it, and he can't reach. He's just going, no, oh, God, and then he starts freaking out, and he grabs the saw, and Adam knows what he's about to do. He's just like, no, God, oh God, go, like you just feel that where he's just like he's at his last breaking point, like he's panicking, and he's just at his last beat, and then he does the thing, and he immediately starts turning pale white from the loss of blood, which is a nice detail. He's just like goes to white. Yeah. And
the movie when he's like, check your body for scars. What if they check their intestines? You would either be bleed. You would either be in extreme pain right now, or you'd be dead. How do you know? You a surgeon? Yes. Like there's
I'm a surgeon. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you believe that he's able to properly cut his leg off. So you know what I mean? Like there's so much things that, like I said, it's the smartest. It really is. Like in terms of compactness.
Yeah, and I still get goosebumps when Jigsaw finally gets up and he shocks Adam, and then he goes game over, and he slams the door, and you goes to black, but you still just hear Adam screaming like, and they just linger on it for like a minute. Yeah, they just linger on it, like they just let him scream in a blank screen. It's like what makes you leave the theater going like, holy shit, that was great, like that was good stuff.
Because you're not ending
James Wan knows what he's doing.
On a happy note. You're ending on just a So spoiler alert, when we talk about my top 64 for your show, Terminal Fights, one of the things that I'm going to kind of ask, and obviously I can't force anybody, but this is a good example. You brought it up where it's like, remember that thought, the end of Saw 1, that feeling of how you end and just how it made you feel inside. Obviously, it's not the funnest, it's not the most rewatchable, it's not the best made movie, or it's not the quickest or whatever. But like, how did it impact you? And that's how I like keep up with this list. When I really was nitpicking, like what's one impacted me the most, and I couldn't deny the fact that Saw 1, just by, like you said, that final 10-15 minutes of just what we're, you know what I mean? And that's what I love about film, where it's like I judge my favorites based on how they impact me. Sure, if I really want to do my favorites, I could just do the quickest 90 minutes, fun, quotable, silly, stupid, no meaning stuff. Turn your brain off and watch them, and that's fine. I don't judge people that do that, but for me personally, I want the ones that impact me. And ironically, the one that impacted me the most is the quote unquote safe pick of Saw 1. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's just how it goes, you know what I mean? And like that's just that's what I love about film, because it's subjectivity, where it's like you have Saw 6 as your favorite, and it's literally my bottom 2, and I have Saw 1 as my favorite, which is, if you ask 100 people, I would say 90% say Saw 1 is their favorite, but you have it as your number 4, which isn't like low, but it's technically middle of the pack. You know what I mean? That's
sure.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where that's why I love this show, and I love the concept of just talking about people with movies, because it's like, you never know how people are going to disagree or just view things differently, and just put yourself in someone else's shoes for a minute. And like I said, I got to put my drunk shoes on, but I'm going to give Saw 6 another chance.
Hey,
And
man, but that's the beauty of movies and how kind of subjective they can be and what can click with different people just depending on their mood or what clicks with them emotionally or what just gets their adrenaline up or what they just click with, what they vibe with. And it could be something different for everybody. I mean, we could do this a year from now and I could rewatch them again and my rankings could change again. You know what I mean? Like I could go through the whole series again and have this one here, this one here, and this one there, just like we were talking about with Tarantino or Rocky, like depending on the day, it could be totally different. So, but that's the fun thing about movies, and well, yeah, we have those connections, and the reason we rank things here or reason we rank them there, and it's for different reasons. But talking about Saw, like I had that feeling when I first saw it in the theater. I still remember it vividly. I saw it in theater number 20 in Cinemark Tinseltown, Jacksonville, Florida. I saw the midnight show, and I went and watched it, and it was a full theater. And yeah, when the credits came up, and I could just feel the whole theater just being like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "This movie's gonna make some money." And that movie, on what, a $5 million budget, made like $200 million. I mean, it was nuts. Just one of the most successful independent movies ever. Really crazy. Made James Wan a household name as he is today. And I'd like to see Lee Winnell, now that he's become a director. I wouldn't mind seeing him step in the director's chair for a Saw movie for a change, because he stayed on as writer for a couple of them and producer. But dude's done Upgrade so it's like I'd like to see dude step in the director's chair. Let's see what he's got. Come back to the Saw movies, bring it full circle.
Actually, this will be a little fun as I'm setting up the graphics for our final show ranking. What would you want to see from Lee Winnell if you so for, like we talked about earlier, say the next one is Saw 10 instead of Spiral 2. How would you want Lee Winnell? Just a quick little thing of how would you want him to make a movie? Like how would you want him to expand the franchise?
I see. I don't. He definitely needs to bring a combination of both styles. Like I feel like when you go one direction or it's at this point, I don't know if you can go one direction or the other. Can you go back to doing what you did with those earlier ones? I don't know if you could go full on there, because then people would just think it's a copycat. But then with this new stuff, people are kind of like, it just doesn't feel like a Saw movie. I don't know. Like I just feel like him as a filmmaker and how he's developed, I would just like to see what he could do with it, having that personal connection, to the series and come back for it. Maybe just
figure out a way to do like a prequel. And I know you hate that, but like the original writer, do you think he would be more attached to something old school, like a prequel, or do you think he would literally make it a Saw 10 and expand on it somehow?
I think he would expand on it somehow, because he would probably see where the series had been and how kind of crazy the timeline has gotten, and been like, all right, let's really like jump ahead and do something different, and maybe, do like a true, again, I don't even know, because it's like we've done the copycat thing, we've done the survivors of the groups, we've done the kind of disciple sort of thing. I don't know, like, a cult of Jigsaw. I don't know. Do something. Like I don't know. I don't have those answers. Like I really don't. But I don't know if you do Saw 10, if you do Spiral 2. I mean, I'm excited for either one. I'm always excited when a Saw movie comes out. I mean, I was hyped for Jigsaw. I was hyped for Spiral. I'm a Saw fanatic, so like I'm hyped. I'm there. Opening weekend, I'm there. Every one of them. I'm going to the theater to see what they got. And I still have hope for the series that they can, if the next one's going to be a final one, that they could bring it all back around and end on a truly high note, as opposed to when I saw the final chapter and I was like, oh, that was not great. Damn. Watching it in 3D, just being like, oh, that was just gimmicky.
That fan fiction of Saw was not that bad. Oh wait, that was a real.
Yeah, that fan movie was pretty. Oh, it was like the same guy who did Saw 6, my favorite one, and then he made the shittiest one, the shittier ones too. Oh, like I don't know where they go, but I'm still excited to see where they go or how they continue whatever story they're going to continue. I'll always be there for it, man. I'm a Saw fan, but that's the fun thing about it, is I can always go back and do these marathons and just bring myself right back to the when I first saw them, and just rock out and have a good time with it. You know what I mean? Go back and watch the old ones and just have a good time.
Like you said, you're a Saw fan, and I finally compiled the list of what our combined list would be. So let's rank stuff. Saw franchise rankings.
And let's call it Pez always ruins these rankings with his crazy rankings.
We'll let you judge in the comments. So at number 9, Saw the final chapter. I feel like there's no dispute there. At number 8, Spiral.
Mm-hmm.
At number 7, Saw 5.
Sounds
at number
right.
4, this one's gonna hurt for me.
Jigsaw. Yeah.
At the number whatever, but that was number 6. At number 5,
Saw 6, right?
Saw 3.
Saw 3. Okay.
At number 2, Saw 2.
Number 4.
Or 4.
Number 4, Saw 2. Yeah.
I'm gonna clip this out, and it's gonna be embarrassing. At number 4, Saw 2. At number 3, Saw 6. At number 2, the original Saw. And the Let's Break Stuff, Henry Confidential, Austin Pez Howell, number 1 Saw movie of all time is Saw 4.
Saw 4, yeah.
One that we legitimately had high up there. So, what are your thoughts on how we talked about the Saw franchise? Are you excited that I'm going to give Saw 6 another chance? Drunk as shit. And,
dude, we should do a drunk watch along. We should do a drunk commentary for that one. We should both drink for that one and watch it. I'm telling you, man, it'd make it fun. Let's have a new series. Like if we're gonna do our watch alongs, let's do the confidentially Pez drink along or whatever we want to call it.
Allow people to join in sporadically, but then kick them out after 2 minutes and don't even tell them. Just boot them out. And it's like when you have call in on the radio station, like, oh, next, and you just kick them out. It's just fucking with people.
Yeah, and then for me, like I would either drink beer or I would just every maybe 10, 15 minutes or every time we get to a trap, I'll take a shot of vodka just see how far we get into it.
Soon it gets real. B movie equals B movie. Let's take a
shot. Oh, dude, let's do it. The drunk Saw 6 watch along and watch me have so much fun and watch you go, man, I can't believe you did this shit. Number 1, what the fuck is going on the whole time? Just be like, what are you talking about? Oh, come on, he's testing a smoker. What's going on? What are you doing?
Just makes me
Look at Hoffman just murdering everybody on screen. What's going on here? What is going on?
There he
Ryan
likes the
confidentially Pez drink along. Let's do it.
There you go. So before we get to that, if you made it this far in the video on the rewatch, I appreciate it. A little behind the scenes, we're doing another show after this over on Austin's channel on Movie Hero with Jordan Anderson. So I started to drink a little early. So as you know, it started kicking a little bit. And obviously, how do you not drink and watch Saw? Like, you know what I mean? That's just, I mean, obviously Austin. Yeah. But like in general, how do you not? So with that said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it. And if some reason you just clicked on the video and you just, wanted to watch the Saw franchise being ranked and you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, because not only do we have this show, Let's Rank Stuff, me and Austin are the new top 10, the new Roger and Ebert, or the Siskel and Ebert, where we just have a little duo. But we also do trivia.
I'm Ebert. I'm definitely Ebert because I'm the fat guy with the glasses, and you're the taller guy who's a little more in shape, who's got the thinner hair. So you know what, that works.
That's an interesting way to put it. And then the other one.
Well, I mean, I'm just being blunt. I'm a chunky guy with glasses, so that makes me the Ebert. I think that's pretty obvious.
That's fair. And this is a fun question. We don't know. We'll find out. Tune in later.
Well, he may not be right now, but as we progress into the 3 hours of tournament fights or however long hell it goes, if he keeps going.
Jordan telling me potential things that might be on the show, they just make me drink.
It's not going to be so much like, it's not necessarily like the best of 20. It's just a bunch of 2021 movies, and we just see what comes out on top.
Did the tail on the donkey? So, no, that's. I'm just kidding. But with that said,
I'm gonna write down a prediction of what is gonna win that tournament on a piece of paper. I'm at the beginning of the movie, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna win. So I'll save that for when we get to the show. But I'm pretty sure I know what's gonna win.
I'll do that too. So. Yeah. With that said, that is Movie Hero. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to Movie Hero on YouTube. But don't search up Movie Hero. Just search up Tournament Fights and then just find the Movie Hero.
Tournament Fights, Tier Ranker Fights, Podcast League Now. One of those 3 will get you to the Movie Hero Network. And then, subscribe real quick. Get the notifications when we go live. Or check the Schmodown Friends and Family Facebook group, because we post in there these shows, those shows, all the other shows, Jacob Barber shows that I'm on, everything that you can see. We all post our stuff in there. Go support everybody. Come on, we're all a community here. We watch each other's shows. We have a little fun.
New goal 2022. Instead of trying to compete with everybody, let's boost each other up.
Let's work together. Let's boost each other's numbers. Yes,
So,
let's all subscribe to each other. Let's watch each other. Let's support each other. Come on, let's comment on each other's stuff. Let's just have fun with it, guys. We're all a community. We need to support each other. Let's act like it.
And the final show is the Confidential Roundtable, where we just literally do an hour-long open forum movie talk movies for an hour with me and, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 other people, and just talk about movies depending on where the conversation takes us. And trust me, we've only had about 4 or 5 episodes, but it's a blast and you won't regret it. So make sure you subscribe to this channel for that reason. Like he said, do the post notifications, because most of our videos are live and it's not on a direct schedule. So sometimes it's a little off. So you want to be notified when we're live. And also you just want to, you know, watch it on time, because if you pop up at the end, you're like, oh shit, number 1 saw 4. How did we get there? You know, so tune in later and or tune in the beginning, you'll see it all. So with that said, I am Henry Confidential. That is Austin Pez Howell. And this is Let's Rank Stuff, because guess what? We show up and we're going to rank stuff. We're out, guys. See you guys. If you guys are watching live,
So 6. If
you guys see it live, go ahead and watch it. If you watch this on the repeat, make sure you're subscribed and watch the channel. Henry Confidential, Austin Pez Howell.